I'm doing something a little bit different, driven by the news of the Bloomberg story. It's about Chelsea, and it's about the tension between two of the lead owners, Behdad Iqbali and Todd Bowley. Now, but I want to broaden this out because people are like, oh, boring Chelsea, and we know, it's a freak show, whatever. So we'll mention that, but also I want to ask a question of how do we want our clubs run? Because I think football has changed. It does my head in every time some Muppet pops up and says, oh, look, we have a rich owner. And how rich is he? Do we have money? No, this is not how football works anymore and hasn't worked this way in a long, long time. Okay, so the story on Friday is basically, for those who don't know, there's a company called Clearlake, which two of its principals are Jose Feliciano and Behdad Iqbali. They have 61.5% of Chelsea.
Yeah, they're an investment fund.
They're an investment fund. I don't know exactly how they define themselves, but that's as good a term as any. The other Chelsea shares, Todd Bowley has 13% of them, and the rest are split between a guy named Hans-Jörg Wyss, who is like a million years old. I mean, seriously, he's like 89 or something. Yeah. And this other guy named something Walter, who I don't know much about. So until now, until last year, let's say, Bowley's been the face of Chelsea. And as you know, he was the de facto sporting director in the first summer, and that's when everybody made fun of him and the way he looks, and he looks like a collegiate wrestler, which he was, funnily enough. Oh, there's a shock, right? Yeah. Captain Meathead. Since then, he and Iqbali have reportedly, they don't see eye to eye, they've reportedly fallen out, they deny they still have a professional relationship. I'm like, of course you have to say that. You have to have a professional relationship. You're not morons, right? You're working together. And the idea is that Bowley, is that now Clearlake, so Iqbali and Feliciano's group, they want to buy Bowley's share. That's what Bloomberg reported. And then counter reports, Bowley's come forward and says, no, well, what if I raise X billion? What if I buy out Clearlake? So there's obviously going to be this question. I don't think Todd Bowley can come up with $2 billion to buy out, or however much it would take to buy out Clearlake.
Yeah.
Just because it's not that easy to raise money.
And to buy them out, they need to agree to sell, right? You can't just put on
They need to agree to sell. Here's the difference, and this is another part which people often forget, right? And this isn't just Chelsea. I'm broadening it out now, right? So if I'm the Glazer family, I have a bunch of siblings in a room. Yeah, we have to agree. But, ultimately, it's all in the family. Clearlake raises money from investors, from pension funds to private equity to hedge funds and so on. They're not raising money generally. Some of it is, but they're not generally raising money from individual investors. They're raising money from people who have a responsibility to the guys who have given them money. So they have to kind of show a profit, they have to show a business plan and so on. So in theory, if Bowley says, here's $5 billion or an enormous amount of money, Clearlake are going to be under pressure to say yes, because the people who invested with Clearlake say, look, I don't give a crap about Chelsea. I gave you money because you said we're going to turn this into a business. Here's somebody who can give us a big return. Now pull the trigger and go away, right? Bowley's issue, and it's not 100% clear whether that 13% of Chelsea that he owns is actually all his money or whether he's borrowed money as well, because this is the other thing. People don't seem to understand this, but all these rich people, like Jules, when you go and you buy a new refrigerator, you probably go and you buy the refrigerator and pay with your own money, right? Most of these people, when they invest, they say, look, I have $10 billion in assets somewhere. It's not like they sell their assets to go and buy their chunk of Chelsea. No, they borrow money against those assets that they have. In most cases. Yeah. They borrow at a low interest rate, whatever, and then they acquire Chelsea with that money, and it's secured against the other assets that they have. So they're not super liquid. Yeah. So the reason I'm bringing all this up and why we're going to broaden this out on the Gab and Juls podcast is, does this make for stable ownership? And what are the alternative models? Whether it's the membership model like we have at Bayern or Real Madrid, whether we have the super wealthy de facto state ownership, Manchester City, Paris Saint-Germain. And there are also some rich, the family office, like practically Arsenal is, or Manchester United. Okay, Jules, I'll continue my lecture. I know you're just so not psyched.
No. I think it's really interesting, and I think people need to hear it to understand.
One of the things that always gets me, and obviously we have a lot of comparisons with American sports and the way they're set up, right? So using the NFL as an example, but I think the NBA is very similar, is there you have 32 owners or 31 owners plus the Green Bay Packers, which are their own thing going, but who are all billionaires. Yeah. Some have business partners, some don't. And they get to decide who goes and buys a club in the league. And until this year, they weren't even allowed to take private equity money. Now they're allowed to take private equity money, I think up to a certain percentage. I think it's 10% or 20%. So it's a very different landscape. And the advantage of having a single owner is that there's one guy, sometimes it's a woman, taking responsibility.
Yeah, make the decision.
And then you can make the decision. It's his money. It's his backside that is on the line. So that creates, I think, a lot of efficiency. You can make decisions quickly and so on. One of the problems in football is that I Googled this the other day, and it was on the internet, so it must be true. 190, you know how many people, I nearly said it, you know how many people in the world are worth $10 billion or more?
190?
192, according to the internet. I know, I blew that one, right? But I'm going to assume you have to be worth at least 10 billion to own a top flight football club all by yourself.
Yeah. So you mean individually it's really hard on your own to buy a Manchester United?
Yeah. And it's not because you're then spending 8 billion, it's because you're tying up so much of your assets, right? Now, and that's why so many owners, the owners we see in the Premier League are either people like Tony Bloom or the guy at Brentford, Matthew Benham. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that these guys are not worth 10 billion. However, obviously they bought the club for a lot lower, put in their own money, whatever, they're smaller clubs, and they've grown into it. I think everybody else who owns it by themselves, they need partners because they may be worth 10 billion, but you know, if I'm worth 10 billion because I own a company that's worth 4 billion, I can't like sell that company from one day to next to go and buy Aston Villa or Tottenham Hotspur, right? So it's basically that simple. So you have to find other ways to own the club or to run the club. And at that level, effectively, you're either talking essentially royal families, states, stuff like that, the Qatar, UAE, Saudi situation, or sovereign wealth funds, basically. Or you have to go down this road where you raise money from investors. And you know, you may be a billionaire yourself raising money from investors, but investors want their money back. And so, and I think this is part of the reason why there is this push towards, we've talked about it before, towards cutting back, towards financial regulation, which some people don't like. Some people say, oh no, it's the cartel, and whatever. Okay, cartel schmartel. You're in the minority. You don't get to decide this, right? Most people want this because most people want their club to be stable and to exist.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I just find this whole ownership debate interesting because you won't be able to regulate it, right? You won't be able to say that you can't have state owning clubs, right? Is it legally possible? It's not legally possible for FIFA or UEFA or even a league to say like, we don't want the Saudi money or we don't want the Qatar royal family money or it's not possible, right?
I think
there's some sort of freedom somewhere.
So yes and no. I mean, I think within the European Union, it's extremely difficult.
Right.
In the UK, it would have been more possible, I think. I think they could have blocked the Newcastle deal.
Could we get to a situation where the Premier League clubs, the 20 clubs, decide who the owner is if Everton gets sold, and then the other 19 clubs get together at the Premier League and said, John Textor, show us your account. And
let's not pick on John Textor.
No, but I'm just saying, like in the NFL, is that possible?
So, again, I'm not a lawyer. You know what I think of lawyers. So they have something called the fit and proper person test, and it may have a different name now, right? But the idea is, for example, let's say the people who, the guy who owns Everton, who of course is Farhad Moshiri, and it's only him, and it's all his money. There's nobody else involved. Let me be very clear on that for legal reasons. Let's say he decides to sell it to, I don't know, some cyber fraudster, no name, or let's say he decides to sell it to a Mexican drug lord or whatever, right? Or an American drug lord, who's using laundered money or whatever. And I'm not suggesting Farhad Mashiri would do this. He says, well, I didn't know, right? And then that guy goes to prison and all the money's gone and they're not solvent. Or let's say he sells it to somebody who says like, which some people might say nearly happened, like, oh, look, I'll pay you 10 billion or I'll pay you, $1.5 billion for Everton. Here's a check. And then Mashiri leaves and then all of a sudden there's no money to run the fund, right? Yeah. So that's why you have to have fit and proper persons test. Yeah. And you can disqualify owners in certain situations. But beyond that, they can't just say no because we don't like this type of owner. Yeah. Right? As the rules stand. I'd love to see, I think they could. If the 20 Premier League clubs got together and said, nah, we're going to have rules. Can't be a sovereign wealth fund. It has to be a private actor. Has to have this, that, and that.
Do you think they could do that?
I think they could. I think there'd be legal challenges and then they have to sort it out. But the problem is, I don't think they will. I don't think they would for the reasons turkeys don't vote for Christmas, right? Because if I own a club and I want to sell it one day, I don't want somebody telling me, no, you can't sell to him because we don't like him, right? Or her.
Fair enough.
So that's a difficulty. And so you might say, and some people say, well, the best model is kind of the membership model, right? Yeah. Members elect a board and so on, right? And Bayern have a version of that. Borussia Dortmund have a version of that.
Yeah, German clubs in general have.
They also have a ton of regulation, which some people might say is a restraint of trade, right? Yeah. But the most famous examples are Barcelona and Real Madrid, and they're very different. Yeah. And again, a little lesson, whatever. But Real Madrid, the members vote for president. However, if you want to run for president, they put in certain restrictions, certain minimum requirements. And I'm going off the top of my head. If I get this wrong, don't shoot me. Just correct me. Write to me nicely on Twitter. I think you must have been a club member for at least 30 years, which obviously disqualifies
a lot of people.
You must have been, I think, held a board position or something for 10 years, which obviously further reduces it. And the big thing is you have to have a personal bank guarantee. So you have to have a bank that goes over and says, yes, Mr. Julian Lawrence
supports you.
Has, I think it's 90 million euros. Actually, I think it's a percentage of the club budget, so it might be more or less, whatever. But it's a number like that. Yeah. Has 90 million euros in his bank account that we've set aside just in case, you need it, right? Which is a way of cutting out most people who don't have 90 million. Right? So the joke is that, with these eligibility requirements, there's literally 3 people in the world who could be president of Real Madrid, and one of them happens to be Florentino, right? Yeah. So the downside with that is that when you limit it so much, you create a situation where the same guy's always going to be in charge. Yeah. Florentino's, in many ways, has been very, very successful for Real Madrid.
Interesting.
The problem is, I think, and that's why right now, I think if I'm Florentino, now I am rewriting the rules to open it up to different people while still safeguarding the club. Yeah. Because it can't be, you can't have a pool, once he goes,
it's not
you have a pool of 2 people running. What if one of them's a moron? What if one of them hits his head and goes insane, right?
Because at the end of the day, Gab, this is all good, but what makes a good owner, regardless if it's a state fund, if it's an individual, it's a family, it's 2 families, it's a hedge fund, it's anything, is how competent the people who run your club on a daily basis or as an owner will be, right?
Yes.
Because you can say, okay, let's just go for families, and only family can own Premier League clubs. So the Cronkies, the Glazers, etc., etc. Some of those won't be good enough anyway. And on the other hand, you can have a hedge fund, I'm sure, who could do a good job at owning Chelsea. It doesn't have to be like a freak show like Bowley and Egbali, for example.
Exactly. And I think the argument in favor of the hedge fund is that because people have their money in there because they answer to outside investors, if the investors aren't happy with the way they're running the club, they're going to vote with their feet. Yeah. They're going to say, So I think they have a commitment usually, I think it's between 5 and 8 years. After 5 years, they pick up the phone and say, hey, Bedad, I'm not re-upping here.
How's my money doing?
Yeah, go find somebody else, right? And then all of a sudden, he's got to go, try to get somebody else. And if he can't do it, then he has to sell the club, right? Yeah. So that's the thinking there. The other model with Barcelona is the requirements to be Barcelona president are a lot looser than at Real Madrid. So you still have a vote, but many more people are eligible to run.
Yeah.
And the risk there, and this is the risk I think with any club like that, is that a little bit like politics. As soon as I get elected, I'm thinking of getting re-elected. And what do people want? Oh, look, I inherited a massive hole in the public finances. Oh, let me pull some levers and bring in some Lewandowskis and some Kessies. Is that the right thing? Would he be doing that if it was his money on the line?
Yeah.
These are the big questions. So I don't know what the answer is. I think it's it's a cluster mess to regulate. I do think, and I don't even know whose job it would be to regulate, because UEFA could say, okay, we're going to have rules to play in our competitions, right? But UEFA want Paris Saint-Germain and Manchester City in their competitions. So do they grandfather them in? Do they say, okay, from now on, anybody except for you guys who are already in, right? We make these rules. Would they stand for it? So there's a lot of tension there. I don't know how you resolve it, but I think it shows how things have changed over the years, and football needs to evolve, and football needs to answer these challenges.
What do you think, just to finish up, what will happen at Chelsea? Do you think it will be status quo? Do you think in the end Bowley will give up and sell his 13% shares to Clear Lake? Or how do you see this one panning out?
So I think it's pretty obvious Clear Lake have access to a lot more capital than Bowley does, right? Because he wouldn't have involved Hans-Jörg Wyss and these other people. I mean, honestly, other than money, I don't know what poor Hans-Jörg Wyss, who's massive philanthropist, wonderful person or whatever, but the reality of being 88 or 89 is the reality of being 88 or 89, right? I think the most realistic case is that Bowley, if they're pushed to it, Bowley will sell to Ibali, and then go back to being a part owner of the LA Dodgers.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know, and I think the difficulty is going to be also putting at what valuation do you put, like, on Ibali? Like, how much money do you demand from Ibali to buy you out? And also, then does Ibali give? Because ultimately, Clear Lake are in charge. They have 61.5%. There is this power sharing thing, but
even the fact that Bowley got so much airtime was weird in the sense that it's only 13%. When you see that our friend John Texter, like our brother from another mother, at Palace with 45%, has nothing to say. You never see him. I'm not even sure he's allowed into the stadium. Bowley took all the limelight and everything when he was really a minority shareholder.
Yeah, I think Clear Lake said, let's put him to the front, put him in charge, maybe because he already owns a sports team, and clearly running the Dodgers and running Chelsea are identical. But I don't even know if he does run the Dodgers, frankly, or is he just the guy in the box, you know, with his blazer? I don't know. But my guess is it's easier for Clear Lake than Bowley raising a whole bunch of, because the other thing with Bowley too is, like, first of all, both know the club situation, right? And the club situation is not good. There are PSR issues. They have committed, and remember the whole thing with the sale price, they're committed to investing nearly another $2 billion over 10 years. Now they've spent a lot of money, but they still need to get to that, right? If I'm Bowley, do I really need to want to raise all? I'd have to raise all this money, buy out Clear Lake, which would cost a lot of money, which I would need to raise, have another set of investor coming to me and being like, oh, are we going to see a return in 5 years? How are we going to do that? When I know the club's finances from the inside are what they are. So it's cheaper and more effective and easier for Clear Lake to buy out Bowley than vice versa. But who knows? All right, no more boring topics. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's go, Gab.
Jules, they host Belgium in a few hours after we record this, so everything could be all better or potentially all worse very soon for France. But I think nobody saw that defeat, and more than that, that performance against Italy Friday night coming.
Yeah, one of the worst I've seen in a very long time. At least at the Euros, they were good defensively. Not so good with the ball, but defensively, they were very, very solid. And there was none of that on Friday. Credit to Italy after what was a dreadful start and conceding a goal after 12 seconds. And France maybe thinking the game was going to be easy because you 1-0 up after 12 seconds. But France were battered. But so bad. Like, really, like I've rarely seen it. Deschamps had no answers to Spalletti's back three. The players themselves didn't put a shift in. The attitude was wrong. No effort. Nothing with the ball. The key players, if you want, Mbappe, Griezmann, N'Golo Kanté, were were just like pathetic, really, in terms of performance.
Saliba really struggled too.
The whole defense. I don't think he's used to playing
It's
with
collective, but obviously he's the guy
Konate.
holding the can because he's the guy in the middle with the ball going all around him and
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, what's going on?
So bad.
They keep reporting that Magic Mike
Yeah.
did not take it well.
No, he did it at the Euros as well. There's a lack of leadership in this team, which we knew when you lose Lloris and Varane and Pogba and Giroud. You lose a lot of your leadership, you lose a lot of caps, a lot of experience, a lot of leadership too. And right now, I think this squad and this dressing room and Deschamps are looking for the new leaders or the next leaders.
So it's Magic Mike.
And Magic Mike is certainly that. And he doesn't speak a lot, but when he does, everybody listens. He's got that voice as well that carries a lot.
It felt like they were unprepared for this game. I know Spalletti likes his tactical voodoo, but like
And
it
he
felt like
changed
Deschamps didn't prepare them for this
Yeah,
game.
but when does Deschamps prepare tactically? That's the thing. That's my problem. And Gab, you were so down on Spalletti. You predicted a spanking. You said on
I
Thursday
did, yes.
show, and I told you that it would not be the case. How does this change your view on it, or should we not get too carried away?
You obviously don't want to get carried away. But Spalletti promised youth. I love seeing Samuel Ricci in there.
Yeah, me too.
I thought he showed a ton of personality. I think this team does have a lot of personality, which is good. Calafiori was very good. Now he's injured for the next game, but whatever. There's limits, but I thought they wanted a reaction, and Spalletti was very good at getting a reaction.
Yeah.
And that kind of... And then, though, but as an aside, since you're the Techers man, that goal...
Amazing.
What did you like better?
Amazing.
Is it Tonali's back heel
Yeah, I
or
love that.
DiMarco's finish?
I love the back heel because I think the volley like that from a player like DiMarco can score, who've seen score from the halfway line. This is not a difficult volley for him to do. The ball is not spinning. It's not a long cross. He's in his stride. So for me, what makes it, the finish is beautiful, but what makes it is the Tonali touch. And we talked about Tonali on Thursday, wondering after not playing for so long what kind of impact he could have. He was outstanding. It was made easier because the fact that the French midfield was dreadful. But I thought Tonali looked so good.
Yeah, for me, Tonali and Calafiori, Tonali, Ricci and Calafiori,
Yeah.
Arsenal fans, stepping into midfield and becoming essentially the playmaker, very effective that way.
Yeah.
Speaking of being mean to managers, Ronald Koeman starts Matthijs de Ligt and Joshua Zirkzee, two guys he seemed to forget about at the Euros, and Holland destroy Bosnia 5-2. Jules, were you overly mean to the Dutch guy?
No, I wasn't. I mean, Bosnia, terrible team.
Come
They
on.
are so bad. And this was, there was a bit of movement. The ball moved well. I liked what I saw, and I liked the fact that Zirkzee scored because there's obviously a lot of questions around him here in England because people have never watched him play. They never watched him for Bologna.
And he's
didn't watch him
different.
before,
That's the
and
other
he's
thing. He's different.
to what they know. So good for his confidence. Good for De Ligt, who had a little slide tackle at the Bundesliga after, saying like nobody watches it in the world and it's better to come to England. So I like that. I like the night for the Dutch guy. It was positive. Germany beat up Hungary 5-0 as Jamal Musiala and Florian Wirtz run rampant in the second half. Gab, this was impressive.
It was impressive, I think, more so after the break. I mean, at halftime it was still 1-0. And you kind of thought, But a couple of things about this. Obviously, Toni Kroos is missed.
Mm-hmm.
But Pascal Gross is such a phenomenal... I know the story here is Musiala, 4 goal involvements, whatever, and Wirtz, they light it up. But I think Gross can... He can't beat Toni Kroos, but he can do a lot of the same things. And when he doesn't, Pavlovic, who came on for him, I thought, played 30 minutes.
Really
I think he looks really good.
Yeah.
And funny how Joshua Kimmich has no issue playing right back when it's for a coach he respects and who doesn't treat him in a mean way. Portugal come from behind at home to beat Scotland 2-1. Scott McTominay, by the way, scores again.
Early
He's
again.
a goal machine for the national team. Jules, do I need to tell you who scored the late winner? He now has 901 for club and country, which is not really a thing, adding the two together. But hey, it's a way to celebrate him. He scores a ton of goals.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, he scored 900 4 days before, and then the 901 against Scotland. He came on at halftime. It didn't start. I thought the team played better without him, but then he was decisive by scoring the winner with him on the pitch. This is where, for me, the dilemma and the conundrum is. I would not take him anymore. I would not take him to the World Cup in 2026 because I don't think he would be good enough at the time.
Hater.
As we saw, yeah, exactly. And that doesn't undermine anything amazing that he's done in his career, including the 901 goals that he scored. I'm just saying at 39 years old now, he's just not cutting it for me anymore. But 2 goals in 2 games, is a good return for him. So no
I
problem.
mean, I wonder if you want to prolong your career, which I think he obviously wants because he's so competitive. Is there a scenario of you being a part-time striker where you come on if we need you, or maybe even if we're winning, you come on, you hold the ball up, you give everybody a lift. If you know,
But those players don't want to be sub, do they? Remember Thierry at the 2010 World Cup?
okay. First of all, there's only one other contemporary player who you can mention in the same sentence as Cristiano, and with all due
But
respect,
it's
it's
nothing
not
to do
Thierry
with
Henry.
Cristiano. But that's not the point. It's not about Thierry Henry or Cristiano Ronaldo. It's like those kind of players.
So you're saying if Roberto goes to him and says, like, Cristiano, I want you with us, but you won't be starting, you won't be an automatic choice. You think Cristiano's going to say no?
Yeah, I don't think
You could just say, no, I'm going to retire for the national team then?
I
I
just
don't
say
think
like no. It's like I'm here to start. I'm not here to be a sub. I like who are you going to play instead of me? Who's better than me? Cristiano doesn't think that nobody's better than him.
Well, to be fair, when it comes to center forwards, who's better than Cristiano and
So then
Portuguese center forwards?
But then that's what I mean. So you start him then. If you start like this, if nobody's better than
Right,
him, you
but if
start him.
Gonzalo Ramos comes back and is actually good, who knows? I don't know.
Well, I don't think he would agree to that.
All right.
They waited 20 years and 140 games, but San Marino have finally won a competitive match, Gab. Nico Sensori's goal gave them a 1-0 victory over Liechtenstein.
I don't even think you need to mention competitive matches. I don't think they've won many friendlies either. over
Well,
the
won
years.
20 years ago against Liechtenstein. So that they only won 2 games in the whole history.
Right, so that was the one, 20 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
and it's like,
exactly.
So 140 games in between friendlies and non-friendlies. Look, people can criticize the Nations League. I like the fact that these
too.
teams get to play each other. It's
Love
the same level. I like the fact, by the way, people who make fun of the Nations League, I like the fact that if you're in Group A, like Italy or France, you have a guaranteed big game pretty much every time,
2 even.
right?
Yeah, 2. You should
Or,
have 2,
well,
yeah.
Italy is, but
No,
yeah.
but still, yeah.
France, Belgium
Yeah.
is going to rock tonight.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
like, I don't, what are we complaining about?
No, we
Would you
shouldn't.
want to go back to the old days of friendlies where, like, England plays Jamaica at Wembley in front of 60,000 people? I don't, I mean,
No. By the way, for Liechtenstein, did you see what happened? So they played again on Sunday, away. They were away at Gibraltar. So after losing that game against San Marino, they go to Gibraltar, right? It's 1-1. They concede a goal in the 97th minute to be 2-1 down in Gibraltar, and Liechtenstein scored an equalizer in the 104th minute. Imagine their week. Amazing.
It is
Amazing.
amazing. It's not just about the big countries. Jules, we're not done because we got more quick hits.
Let's go.
Robin Lindemann gets sent off after just 20 minutes, but it makes no difference whatsoever as Spain go on to play 70-plus minute with 10 men. And by the way, they're not playing the Muppet Show. They're playing Switzerland, who knocked them out of the Euros in 2021, I guess. And they win 4-1. They're really, really good. Doesn't matter. Joselu up front, 40 years old.
Yeah.
No matter.
Yeah. And there was no Chaka for Switzerland.
He's not making excuses for
No,
Switzerland.
no, but it's a good team, and you're right. They pushed Spain close at time in a game where they were an extra man for most of it. Spain scored 2 very early goals. Joselu, the first one, and then Fabian Ruiz, the second one, and then Switzerland were the better team, as you would expect, really, because as you're right,
They
it's
get
a
more
good
of the
team.
ball because they have an extra man. But
Yeah,
like,
but
it's not like they
still played
created
well.
tons of chances.
They scored, and they could have come back into the game. But credit to Spain. I mean, with a mixed team, let's put it that way, it's a good win for them, considering they drew with Serbia 0-0 in a game that they were not good in at all, and they could potentially have lost that game 4 days earlier. So,
Mentality.
yeah, that's true. Rodrigo scores the only goal as Brazil beat Ecuador 1-0 in the South America qualifiers for the World Cup. Gab, this was better from the Seleção?
Yeah, I don't think so, actually.
Ecuador with a better team, I thought.
I mean, I thought Ecuador really made it tough. Allison had a big one-on-one save. That midfield of Andre, Bruno Guimaraes, for me, it doesn't really work. I don't even need 2 defensive guys. It's not like you've got Cafu and Roberto Carlos attacking from the fullback positions anyway. We saw a bunch of flicks and tricks from Lucas Paqueta. Great for the highlight reel. But in the end, it's a Rodrigo deflected goal that's the difference.
Yeah.
England went away to Ireland 2-0 in Lee Carsley's first game as interim manager. Jules, your thoughts?
I thought the first half, especially the second half, not so good, but the first half was really good. I thought there's a lot of things that we saw tactically, from Grealish's position to Trent, kind of a back 3, hybrid back 4 if you want. Was good, was really good. The second goal is a beautiful goal collectively. So there was a lot of encouraging signs. I would put it that way. Ireland are a bad
Not
team.
good.
They're not good. So don't get too carried away. Don't take too much out of it. But from a first game for Carsley, it's good, And that Rice and Grealish score, obviously the former Irish international.
Well, that's the next question.
Was written,
so
but yeah.
don't step on my next question.
No, it's true because Lee Carsley didn't sing the anthem, Gab, and Declan Rice didn't celebrate his goal, but Jack Grealish did. Are you okay with all of that, or do you understand the controversy?
I understand the controversy because all three people are English who are of Irish descent, right? So they're eligible for both. I can say English in the sense that they were born here, raised here, both have at least one English parent. That said, it comes down to how you feel. Carsley played for the Republic of Ireland for many years. He didn't feel like singing the anthem. He feels Irish. Totally cool. Totally cool with me. Italy won a World Cup with Mauro Camoranesi not singing the anthem. That's fine. We're grown-ups here. This is a personal choice. Rice and Grealish both played under 21s for the Republic of Ireland. Declan Rice treated it as if he had scored. I'm guessing if he were to score for Arsenal against West Ham, he might not celebrate.
Yeah.
That's how he treated it. Fine. Grealish, who I think enjoys winding up opponents, did celebrate. These are personal decisions. I think we have to respect them. Argentina beat Chile 3-0 with 3 second-half goals.
Yeah.
Jules, they're still rolling along nicely.
Yeah, they are, even without Messi, who was not playing, still injured. Julian Alvarez scored, which I think is good for him, considering...
Nice goal, too.
Yeah, considering that he hasn't really hit the ground running yet with Atletico. So it's good for them. I mean, Chile are by far away from the good Chile team that we saw a few years ago. So it was not too hard, I thought, for Argentina to control the game, play even at times at their own pace, I thought.
They were a little slow in the first half.
Yeah, they were.
Oh, and Roma fans, Paulo Dybala can still finish.
Yeah, and he scored with the number 10 as well, by the way. Mikel Arteta's contract expires in June, and while he told ESPN back in June, June, that he doesn't predict any issues stopping him from extending the contract. There's still no signed deal yet, or certainly no announcement. Is this an underreported story, do you think?
I think it is, and I don't know what Arsenal are briefing people. I'm sure they're briefing everybody's fine, nothing to talk here, but it is funny. Remember, we had it with Ten Hag, we had it with Van Gaal. They're like, oh no, well, he's got a year left, but of course we have to extend his contract because otherwise how will the players have faith in him, right? And it would undermine his authority. Ten Hag got a new deal. I don't understand why he got a new deal, right? But that was the argument given. And it's interesting how Arsenal obviously have a different club culture where I'm sure they would like Arteta to sign a new deal. Yeah. But nobody's trotting out this idea, Kai Havertz will disrespect Mikel Arteta because he knows he only has a contract through June. No. I think they're being grown-ups. Now, Arteta did say, he told ESPN, things happen in a natural way and our relationship is that good that I don't predict any issues happening. But things have to develop in the right way, and it will happen. Now, the fact that it's September, I thought this would have been the perfect time to make an announcement to say it's all done. This makes me think, are things maybe not developing in the right way? Like, it's something that Arsenal will need to deal with. I think it's in everybody's interest, if he really wants to stay and stuff, that they manage to hammer out a deal. It does not mean, however, give Arteta everything he wants. It never means that because, as I always say, players and managers come and go, clubs stay. Canada beat the United States, coached by interim boss Mikey Barras, 2-1 in a friendly on Saturday. And Jesse Marsch got a few things off his chest.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, first win in 57 years for Canada on US soil, which is a long time. And it's a big win for them. It's a big goal from Jonathan David to score the winner in that second half. And Jesse Marsch, do you think it'd be better not to have been given the, he took the Canada job before.
Wait, a Princeton guy sulking because he doesn't get his way? No, just kidding. I think Jesse Marsch should have been in contention, should have seriously been in contention, and I can understand why he would feel slighted, right?
Yeah, no, I think so too.
And so I think he enjoyed this victory.
Yeah, and he said, right now I would rather coach Canada than the US anyway. So,
can you explain something to me? Tim Ream, a phenomenal career, phenomenal servant to the game, very intelligent player, very nice guy too. At his age, I don't think he will be starting for the United States in the World Cup, given that I think he's 36 now.
Yeah.
And he had a horrible game.
Yeah,
I mean,
he did.
The entire U.S. playing out from the back were just really vulnerable. Yeah. Why play him? I know you're the interim boss, but why not try somebody else?
I guess maybe because you're the interim boss, this is not, you're trying to build the best team for this game just now.
For a friendly match.
But you don't really look, Vargas is not going to be there next month. I mean, he will be there in the staff, I guess, but nothing else. So, I don't know. It must be strange to coach a game like this, so important, so big when you're, And meanwhile, Gab, we keep getting told that Mauricio Pochettino will be announced as the new USA boss imminently, but as of Monday morning, we still have no confirmation, no official.
All we have is that there's some delegation from the U.S. Soccer Federation that went to see Pochettino in Barcelona, and they're hoping to come back with, the white smoke, as they say when you elect the Pope.
Course, yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know why it's taking this long, but clearly somebody back in August when they said, yep, it's Pochettino, it's done, or somebody in the presumably from the U.S. side, or maybe it was Pochettino, I don't know, who told all these ITK people, he's looking pretty dumb, pretty stupid now, right? A month later, and it's not done. Norway can't go past a 0-0 draw with Kazakhstan, and Erling Haaland has a stinker. I mean, honestly, you should check out his miss. But to cheer him up, Marca report that he's in talks to extend his current contract, which expires in 2027.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if we should believe Marca for a story with Manchester City in England and Erling Haaland. I hope for him and I hope for City especially they can tie him up to a new deal because the longer you keep him, the better. But just don't watch that Kazakhstan game because even his own coach said how bad he was, how unacceptable he was.
He has no incentive to sign a new deal now. None whatsoever.
No point. Victor Osimhen comes on as a substitute for Nigeria and scores within 5 minutes in their 3-0 win against Benin. Gab, you know what this means, right?
Of course. It means the best is yet to come. He's ready. He's had all this pent-up anger. He comes on. He scores. He's going to go to Turkey. Galatasaray. He's going to be the next emperor of the Ottoman Empire. You heard it here. Osimhen, the Ottoman. Look, this is so stupid. And look, Napoli will benefit from this because he's going to score 1 million goals in Turkey, hopefully, and they'll make a lot of money off him. But I am just very happy for him personally after what he went through. The Telegraph, unsurprisingly, report that Dan Ashworth and others were hurt by Newcastle sporting director Paul Mitchell, saying the club's transfer strategy was, quote, not fit for purpose, unquote. Jules, do you empathize with Ashworth getting his feelings hurt? In fact, do you even believe his feelings are hurt?
Why are you? No, I don't. Why are you hurt by what somebody else is who replaced you? And you knew this was coming. This is what a new manager say about the old manager, a new sporting director say about the old guy. Well, a new CEO would say about the old one. Oh yeah, he ran that company so badly. Now I've got to come here and change everything. Why are you hurt? If you really are.
I'm Team Paul Mitchell on this one. Not because I think Ashworth was bad at Newcastle, whatever, but because I like the fact that these people speak and they take accountability, right? So Paul Mitchell, by coming out and saying what he did and being critical of the club's transfer business, right? And the way, I think it was more about the organization and the setup and whatever. And look, not fit for purpose, whatever. Maybe it's a bit harsh, but he's basically saying, I'm going to do a better job. And if I don't do a better job, this means that you can take me and you can go and, you can crucify me, right? You can criticize me and call me a moron, right? Time will tell whether he's right or not. I don't think there's actually bad blood between them. I don't think Dan Ashworth particularly cares what Paul Mitchell thinks. He's landed a good job at a bigger club. So we move on. But I think the reason I'm Team Paul Mitchell is I want people to step forward and take accountability like he did, like Monchi did at Villa. Directors of football should face the media, face the music, explain themselves. Don't just leave everything to the manager, because managers are asked questions about stuff that they don't know about, stuff they shouldn't know about, stuff they can't know about.
FIFPro released a report of the players playing too many games, and both Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva repeated their complaint that there are too many games.
So, De Bruyne coming out, and so FIFPro put out the report, which they do every year, showing everybody played 10 billion games, that it's medically unsafe, and blah, 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 and the stress. De Bruyne said the issue is, and he pointed out that there's only 3 weeks between the Club World Cup final and the start of the Premier League season next summer. He says the issue is that UEFA and FIFA keep adding extra matches and we can raise concerns, but no solutions have been found. It seems that money speaks louder than the players' voices. Okay. 2 points to say this, and I'm sorry. You've heard me say this before, but this really annoys me. Okay. So, first of all, player voices, you have a union. refuse to take the pitch. If enough players in your union support you, then you can go and you can really make a statement. Not just your voice.
Yeah.
Okay, you're one person in an ecosystem of thousands and thousands of professional footballers who make a living doing this. You've got all these colleagues, many of whom do not make the kind of money that you make, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to make a point, and look, there are solutions, right? You could have a limit, like the same way they do for air traffic controllers or truck drivers. You can only play these many games over so much. You can have you have to have these many weeks mandatory off and whatever, right?
Yeah.
So you can do something. You have agency other than moaning and complaining. Secondly, you're complaining about UEFA and FIFA. Who do you think FIFA made a deal with to get clubs to come to the Club World Cup? It's Manchester City. It's your employer. Yeah. So don't just go and bump this all on UEFA and FIFA, who, for all their limits and all their many, many flaws, redistribute this money around the world to football clubs and therefore footballers who are a lot less rich than you are. Take it up with your employer. Tell them, I'm not playing 80 games a year. I'm playing 50 games a year. If you want to adjust my contract accordingly, so instead of making $375K a week, I make $300K a week, go ahead. If you don't like me anymore, you want to rescind my contract, fine. I'll go sign with somebody. I'll go play in Saudi Arabia, go on a long holiday there. You have this agency. Yeah. Use the agency. Don't just fall into the trap and think, oh, look, they're greed. Sorry, it just really, really bugs me. Yeah. Do something constructive. Some big teams eliminated from the preliminary round of the Women's Champions League, Jules. Among them, Atletico Madrid and Eintracht Frankfurt. Now, the format is changing, and the current format is there's like a 4-team mini tournament. Is that right?
Yeah.
And
in the same venue.
We won't have this next year, but are you okay with it? Because Jonas Eidevall, the Arsenal coach, even though Arsenal qualified, he doesn't like it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was the same case last season. For example, and Arsenal were beaten there by Paris FC. You play a semi-final and then you play the two winners play each other in the final, and then that means you go and qualify for the playoffs. Because, by the way, if you win this mini tournament, you're still not yet in the Champions League. There's still another draw for a playoff, and then the teams who win the playoff go into the main draw with all the winners of the big leagues, etc., the likes of Chelsea and PSG and those kind of teams. So it's quite complicated to follow to start with. I think it's a lot more games as well for the players and for the teams. I think you just want to go through it, past it, and then once you're in the main draw, that's your main concern really. But for Atletico Madrid and then Frankfurt, two big teams, you're right, it was a disappointment. Atletico lost on penalty to Rosenborg, and they were just not good enough for Ron.
3 Italian teams on to the next round. I think that's unprecedented.
Yeah, that's good. And Arsenal have qualified, beating Rosenborg on Saturday evening. I was at the game, by the way. It was very good. And Arsenal coach Jonas Eidevall, though, complained about the fact that there's just 72-hour gap between games.
I don't understand. Okay. I am prejudiced against Jonas Eidevall for the Emma Hayes incident.
Oh, my God.
What's the name of the Chelsea captain? When he got into her face, the Scottish girl, whatever, right? Okay, so I will get that out of the way. However, he's complaining. So he came out and he said 72-hour gaps between games. It's just science. He says it increases the risk of injury. The WSL, the Women's Super League here, has zero concerns about injury. UEFA has zero concerns about it. Science, it's a fact. It impacts injury risk. It's the same in the men's game. It's just that science is one thing and broadcasting money is another thing. Okay, so first of all, I would love to see what science. So if you're telling me that playing after 72 hours versus 96 hours, I would. Hey, here's an idea, right? You have a social media account. You have somebody. Bring these scientific studies so that people can actually assess the risk of 72 hours versus 96 hours, right? That's number one. Number two, I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that Arsenal's budget is about 10 times that of Rosenborg. So cry me a river here. Use your squad, right? If you're so concerned about the 72 hours versus 96 hours. Would it be better if there was more time between games? Would it be more of a spectacle? Yes. I've been arguing that the top league should go down to 18 teams or even 16 teams for a long, long time. But they don't listen because turkeys don't vote for Christmas. But the reality is you're part of an ecosystem. And to hear you talk about when the women's game has made strides, to hear you saying when you represent Arsenal, who in the Women's Super League Arsenal arguably, along with Doncaster Bells, historically the most important club in the women's game in English football, make your voice heard. How many games do they play in the WSL? 22? right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So were you complaining about playing 22 games?
No, I think it's more broadly. It's like the men's. It's like the men's. I think
Right.
it's a fair comment.
Okay.
You don't want to play every 3 days.
There's
if
one
you can.
difference. Those women that you lead are professionals, right? The broadcasting money they earn is part of what allows them to be professional. That and the fact that Arsenal, like many other clubs, they bankroll the women's team from the men's team. If you want to have professional facilities, if you want to have women pay professional contracts, show me an economic model that works.
I think that's
Don't
not
just
the
go and
problem. I think
crap on about broadcasting money and blaming TV companies. And
I think it's just about the calendar. He's saying it's not. I think this is the wrong.
he literally brings up science is
The
one thing,
calendar,
broadcasting money
because
is
of the
another thing.
calendar. The calendar. But you've said it many times for the women's game. The calendar makes no sense, and that they should just look at the calendar and around in the calendar.
But
Then you would
why
avoid.
but this is why they play these games during the men's international break, so that they can get more media attention and get more eyeballs. I don't know. You saw this game in person. If I had to
Yeah.
find this game on television, I don't even know where to begin. But that is the idea. Let's play it during international week, where people might want to watch women's club football. More
Yeah,
likely
but you
than
can. It doesn't have to be early in September either, when they've just come back from pre-season, when nobody has started their leagues yet, or anything like that. I think his point was just not about these two games in particular. It's more broadly what you can do with the calendar to avoid having players, which is the same for the men's game, playing every 3 days all the time. I think that's just what he means.
I don't know, but they seem like maybe he's taken out of context. Maybe he had a much more reasoned thing. But it really gets my goat, especially in the women's game, where if we want it to grow, we have to come up with a model that works, that provides access to the most women, so on.
That's what he said. For example, that playoff to go into the Champions League, the first leg is on the same day of match day 1 of the men's Champions League. What exposure! So you're going to play the same night that you will have all the men playing their first game of the Champions League.
That's
all those
totally
men-
suboptimal. That's totally suboptimal.
And I think this is what he means.
When can you play that game?
Yeah, but I think this is what he means by the sense of, okay, in this case, it's the 72 hours between those 2 Champions League matches. But overall, I think he means like this calendar makes no sense. The 72 hours between this mini group of Champions League, that makes no sense. The fact that we're going to play Champions League for the women the same day of the men makes no sense.
He made the point,
You see what I mean?
72 hours so that you don't have to stay an extra night, right? You know what? Again, for
Who
Arsenal,
doesn't have to stay an extra
what?
night? Who doesn't have to stay an extra night?
In the neutral venue, so they say one night's hotel room. That was. I didn't put that in this quote that I printed here in this paper.
Yeah,
but
but
that was
this
part
game,
of his
for
argument.
example, for them was in Arsenal, so for them it doesn't.
No, but for the other teams,
for the other
right?
teams, yeah.
For the other teams, maybe it really makes a difference in their budgets.
Yeah, no, for
because
sure.
This is the reality of it. I just wish people couldn't, rather than just looking at themselves in their own little situation, would understand they're part of a big. Otherwise, let's have a women's Super League. Look, I don't think this would be a bad idea, because this is one of the issues with women's football. You've got Barcelona, Arsenal, Paris Saint-Germain, Juve. They have a million times the budget of these smaller ones.
Yeah.
Maybe they should think of some sort of Super League type format, maybe run by UEFA, whatever, where they just play each other. Because at this point, they might as well be playing a different sport. Memphis Depay is on his way to Corinthians as a free agent. Jules, I absolutely love
this is going to be great. And we talk about Ikamunya the other day going to Argentina, for example. Jamal Lewis. Okay, he's not Memphis. But I like the fact that European players now, which before you would rarely see players making that journey from Europe to South America. It was always the other way around. This time they open for it. Dimitri Payet obviously is one of them, who also gone to Vasco, has really enjoyed his time over there, kept them up, saved them against relegation, and I just love it. I love it that now it's another option for you.
I think the original playmaker, I could be wrong on this, was, you remember Petkovic, who played briefly for...
I mean, we said him when we talked about him when Payet went.
So he became a legend
Yeah.
in South America, in Flamengo, I think. I like this idea. If you're there for the look, he's going to make less money, but that's fine. You're playing in a place where they wrote football history. You've already played at Old Trafford, and you've already played at the Camp Nou. So you're already, and obviously with Atletico. So you've already played for these massive, big European clubs. You're saying, I want to have one more experience. It's not just about the money for me. I absolutely love this. I wish more people would challenge themselves this way. Hint, hint, Adrian Rabiot.
Yeah.
No, not here.
Meanwhile, Filip Kostic is on his way to join Jose Mourinho in Turkey. Most cost saving from Juve, Gab?
This is the ultimate hint that they're going to play 3 at the back, if they don't already. I don't know. Because he's just going to sit there and ping crosses with his little left foot. And look, I think he can do that really, really well. Had a ton of assists at Juve.
Yeah.
And for
He's a good
Juve,
player.
big savings. Jules, time to check in on our pal, John Texter. That's right. It's the JT update. We teased it. We mentioned him a few times before, but we're not done. So what did the gift that keeps on giving do this time?
Well, this time he's sacking his Lyon sporting director, David Friot, who used to be at Manchester United. Not happy with the recruitment in the summer, especially with the lack of sales, because obviously, as we've explained before, they budgeted in front of the French FFP that they would sell well and raise a lot of money with players' sales, which they didn't. And I think David Friot, there's more deeper issues than that. But David Friot is about to be let go.
So, in terms of the sanction that they could face, is it a transfer ban? Is it a fine?
We don't know yet.
Worse?
Because Textor can put some of his own money in to.
So as long as he puts some of his
gap,
money, which he also needs to buy Everton,
supposedly. Sure. And I would love to see him putting a member of his family as sporting director. John, that would be so you. Put your wife or your son-in-law, somebody instead of David Friot as a sporting director, and see how that goes.
It's so odd to me to sack a sporting director sort of as soon as the window closed. I know it's because of outgoings that didn't happen, but surely there's...
I know, give them a bit of time to see what, especially the new signings could do.
It just seems bizarre. But then again, they seem to spend freely and sell nobody. Who did they want to sell other than Veretout, who they were hoping to?
No, so
Veretout was at Marseille.
Yeah. No, they wanted to sell the Tolisso, Cacré, Cherki, Lacazette, and they're all there.
Okay, so Lacazette and Tolisso, old, presumably make a lot of money. Ryan Cherki, was there just was he a victim of the fact that...
No, they agreed to deal with Fulham. He didn't want to go. And then he wanted to go to PSG or Dortmund, but they could not agree to deal with Lyon. You've got the Nuama story, which obviously is incredible, what we mentioned before, where he fled his medical to go to Fulham because he didn't want to go to Fulham and nobody knew where he was.
Can I say something? Fulham Stadium, Craven Cottage, is just down the road from where I live. The way these French players crap all over Fulham and Craven Cottage.
He's from Ghana, so he's not French.
Okay. Sorry.
He's from France. What's wrong with He wanted to stay in Lyon, not go to London and Fulham. So
Fulham's not bad. It's not a horrible place. Why are you...
He just prefers his life.
The life in Lyon.
I don't know.
He likes walking up that steep hill.
He's buying a house there.
All right.
Jude Bellingham is launching his own YouTube series. Gab, this won't be like Cristiano's though.
No, apparently it's not going to be. Cristiano's is more of a talk show where he talks with Georgina and giggles and laughs, and sometimes Rio Ferdinand too. Jude's not doing that. Apparently, it's called Out of the Floodlights, and apparently he's collected all this behind-the-scenes footage from his past year. He's going to be releasing it on YouTube for free.
Oh, nice.
It's funny because obviously the publicity people all say it's going to be unfiltered. And I'm like, okay. The mere fact that he controls he or his people, probably his dad, they literally employ the people who film him.
Yeah.
They employ how it's put together and how it's shown.
Edited.
By definition, it's not unfiltered. Just as Pep Guardiola, the All or Nothing is not unfiltered. There is a massive filter. Now, it doesn't mean it's not going to be bad TV.
No,
I think it's going to be interesting.
Be good, yeah.
Bellingham, for all his faults, is a really engaging, intelligent young man. I mean, I say faults because obviously stories came out of the England camp where some people didn't like him. But so I'll be watching this. But just please, and this isn't him. It's the publicity. Don't call it unfiltered. It's anything but.
Jan-Dirk van der Zee, a director at the Dutch FA, says that they're considering scrapping offside at amateur level to combat violence against linesmen and referees. Gab, is sad that it's come to this.
Yeah, it also seems like a bit of an overreaction. There was a linesman who was actually killed, but this was in 2012, years ago. I think it's very simple. I think, they have a rule that only captain can speak to match officials.
Yeah.
And I understand at amateur level, we've played at that level. First of all, it's hard to detect offsides.
It is.
And secondly, maybe who knows what the linesmen are like. You might make mistakes.
Yeah.
I like it better, actually, back in the olden days when it was one guy from each team running the lines.
Yeah.
I have less of an issue with that. But you can't scrap offside because it's no longer football if you scrap offside.
Exactly.
That's I hope this is some kind of provocation. I hope people, it's clear that referees need more protection than they're getting, especially at grassroots level. But yeah, no, scrapping, this is silly. Vincent Abubakar scores the only goal as Cameroon beat Namibia 1-0. But Jules, sadly, the story with the indomitable Lions, once again, is off the pitch.
It is still going on between Samuel Eto'o, who is the president of the Cameroonian FA, and the sports minister of the country, where they are just, it's not even they don't see eye to eye, they just hate each other so much, and they're just fighting all the time. Eto'o threatening to play literally the under-21s in this World Cup qualifier. There's two coaching staff, one chosen by Eto'o and a coach, and one chosen by the minister of the sports minister and the government. It's just absolutely.
Which of the two was there for this game?
So at some point we got to a point where Eto'o's head coach was taking training, and then the sports minister's head coach was taking the game, which is just like, can you imagine?
Well,
it's just, it was that bad.
They're sharing.
Yeah.
It works so well for Roy Evans and Jared Houllier.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know where this is going. I mean, no, the only way this is going to go is at some point Eto'o is going to go, or the sports minister is going to go. This is not sustainable. It's not. This is crazy.
Maybe Eto'o should speak to the prime minister or president and get himself named sports minister.
But the thing is, you can't touch Eto'o. Eto'o is your greatest ever player. He's loved by everybody, although he's losing a bit. The other day there was an interview that he did, I don't know if you saw it, where he tells this story about when he was at Inter and Leonardo was his coach and he wanted to go partying in Paris, so the private jet was ready, but the last time he could fly out from Milan was something like 10 p.m. So he said to Leonardo, who was the coach at the time, hey, take me off at halftime. By then I would have scored a hat-trick and then I can take my flight and go and party in Paris. To what Leonardo said, yes, no problem. Eto'o says after 30 minutes, I've scored 3 goals. He takes me off at half-time. I get the flight with my mates. We go and party in Paris. The problem is, Eto'o has never scored 3 goals for Leonardo at Inter. Never. If you look at all the games he played for Leonardo. And certainly not by half-time. So I'm not really sure. Maybe he got the... But he kept saying Leonardo was my friend. He was my guy. So he said yes to me going to party in Paris. So I don't know where he got the confusion, but yeah, that's completely BS.
Well, age is a horrible thing. It's going to affect all of us unless we
all
die young.
Romania even beat Kosovo 3-0. But Gab, how about the youngsters on the bench?
How about that? Mircea Lucescu, 79 years young, returning to coach Romania after 38 years. Yeah. It's amazing. The funny thing is, I don't think this guy has... Obviously, I went back and I saw like the pictures of him 38 years ago when he was 41 and took the and left the Romania job, and yes, he looks different compared to then.
Yeah,
but I don't think he looks different than he did 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It's like time has stopped.
That's true. And it's a good time to be back. It's a good generation from Romanian players.
It's a very good generation. It's an interesting choice because obviously with Dennis Mann and all the kids they have coming through, you kind of wonder would they be better off with a younger coach or whatever, but no, they've gone for him. I'm sure he's got all sorts of assistants. Hopefully he's grooming because let's face it, you are 79, but it's sweet. It makes me feel really young seeing Mircea Lucescu out there.
Oh, that's good.